How are stablecoins different from XRP in ways that XRP can't do them? That is a great question. We think of them as adding to and completing each other. So when it comes to payments and that part of our business, there are many times when the customer wants to see the transaction go through in US dollars or when it's the cheapest choice. Along big corridors like the US dollar and the euro, there is a lot of money moving through them. You don't need something like XRP as a bridge currency. That was how the people who made the book always talked about it. In the early days of Ripple, we always talked about how a neutral coin could be used as a bridge asset. So XRP would be for things like that in the future of the Internet of Value. A lot of different things will be tokenized on chain, and you need something like that to really efficiently settle between currencies or tokens. That's more of the long tail. Let me explain more clearly. The costs are higher in the long tail of assets and currencies. For example, when you send money from a sub-Saharan African country to the Middle East or Europe, you use a different currency. Also, the money isn't moving around as freely. It costs a lot. For that kind of payment, you might have to pay fees of more than 10%. That's where we think XRP will play a part. There have been 2 times when the Supreme Court made decisions that went against what the Securities and Exchange Commission said, and Coinbase has fought the SEC. This has had a big effect on the cryptocurrency business because it helped make cryptocurrency legal in the US. The courts have ruled that the Securities and Exchange Commission did not have the power to do what it did. This makes it harder for the SEC to make new false charges against anyone in the cryptocurrency world, including those who work with XRP. If someone makes new false charges against anyone, even Ripple, for any reason, it is still possible. In this case, there is still a risk. Recent court decisions have made it less likely for the SEC to try to take such steps, which has caused the amount of cryptocurrency in the US to rise. Were federal courts supposed to let reasonable federal agencies make decisions when laws are hard to understand? Even though the Supreme Court overturned the Chevron defense judgment, it said that the president made the Chevron defense choice in 1984. This decision is very important for the cryptocurrency industry and other companies that have had to deal with unchecked rulemaking by groups like the SEC. This is because judges now have more freedom to read the law however they see fit. This choice could be the most important thing to ever happen in the cryptocurrency business. This is because it means the Supreme Court's view on the Howey test, which checks to see if crypto assets or securities, is no longer important in court. Courts will now base their decisions on the law instead of Chevron. This could lead to outcomes that are different from what the Supreme Court might expect under the Chevron respect. Give it a big thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, turn on notifications, and join our group before we start. This will tell you everything you need to know about XRP, who is running against Elizabeth Warren for the Senate, has spoken out against the Supreme Court's decision on Chevron. He called it an attempt by the far right to gain power that will help the wealthy and powerful. Because of the Supreme Court's ruling, Congress members must do their jobs and pass laws that clearly allow a federal agency to do what it wants to do. This means that US senators will have to stop being so political and work together to find a solution instead of relying on party hacks like Gary Gensler. It looks like the Supreme Court's choice to overturn Chevron was made with the Securities and Exchange Commission in mind, according to lawyer James Murphy, who is also known as the Metal Lawman. Chevron defense is to blame for the unnecessary instability in the judicial system. This means that people who are trying to make plans based on agency behavior are always uncertain. This has made it hard for regulators to understand how to handle cryptocurrencies. And the SEC has been making things up to stay in charge. The Securities and Exchange Commission is having a harder time bringing new charges against anyone in the Bitcoin ecosystem, including people in the Ethereum ecosystem. This is because of recent events, especially the most recent one. Yes, these changes make it less likely that the Securities and Exchange Commission will do something like that. This could cause the amount of CRIP in the US to rise. Consensus, the parent company of MetaMask brokerage staking service, is being sued by the Securities and Exchange Commission because the company is reportedly breaking federal securities laws. In comparison to the ETH ETF, the Securities and Exchange Commission has been criticized for what it does, such as letting Kim Jong-il keep fighting cryptocurrency in any way that the current government allows. The Supreme Court's ruling about the Chevron defense has changed the way regulations work. Now, unelected bureaucrats in the Securities and Exchange Commission are less able to make things happen. This change in the rules could make the business more stable and clear, stopping people from making decisions based on their personal or political views. One of the things the Securities and Exchange Commission said in the Wells warning to Consensus was that Ethereum itself was a security. Because of this, the Securities and Exchange Commission reluctantly cleared the spot at the ZT file again during the election season. Because of this, the Securities and Exchange Commission could no longer sue the session. In a public statement, they made it clear that the investigation into him was over. On the other hand, they made it very clear that the agreement had not been cleared and that no more charges could or would be brought. A member of the XRP community and an attorney called Fred Rizzoli have both said what they think about this, pointing out that there is no way that there can be any more litigation. When Consensus got the Wells notice, they made a complaint against the ASCCC on their own, but they did so before the SEC officially filed a case against them. But they chose to sue the SEC on their own, even though the SEC had stopped looking into them. There are now problems for the Securities and Exchange Commission when they try to make new false charges against anyone in the cryptocurrency ecosystem, even those in the Ethereum ecosystem. Because of recent events and the Supreme Court's decision, it is less likely that the Securities and Exchange Commission will try to do something like that. This will finally cause more people to use cryptocurrency in the US. The current lawsuit against Consensus that was brought by the Securities and Exchange Commission was written by attorney James Murphy. He is known as the Malala Man. The case is mostly about MetaMask changes and staking. People don't like what the Supreme Court did in the Chevron defense case, for limiting the power that the Securities and Exchange Commission was claiming, even though the SEC had never actually had that power. The president made the Chevron defense judgment in 1984. It says that federal courts should let reasonable federal agency discretion guide them when laws are unclear. This Supreme Court order got rid of that judgment. If there isn't a specific rule that covers something, this means that they can call it whatever they want, as long as it makes sense. The Supreme Court's ruling in the Chevron defense case has changed the way regulations are made. Consequently, workers who were not elected have been given less power, and the Securities and Exchange Commission is now making things up. This change in the rules could make the business more stable and clear. Still, individuals and groups should not judge others based on their political views or their own personal ideas. The video is over. Thank them for commenting and liking the movie. It makes YouTube work better. Tell a lot of people about this movie to spread the word.